Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. We are once again here. This time we have Mufti Yousaf Baig again with us, mashallah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I am well. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So as we all know that mashallah we are in the month of Sha'ban. And if you can share some enlightenment with some virtual merits which briefly about Sha'ban and the last few days we have left of Sha'ban. If
we find in the hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that any month besides Ramadan, Nabi Islam is to fast for the month of Sha'ban. It holds great virtue. It's like, as our ulama say, it's the introduction to Ramadan.
MashaAllah.
And a person who wants to spend Ramadan in a befitting way, then he should spend Sha'ban also in a befitting way. Many Muslims enter Ramadan last minute and then they start practicing. Whereas a person who forms a habit in Sha'ban, starts praying, increases his recitation, his tilawat, his dhikr, his fasting, from Sha'ban, it becomes easier to do so in Ramadan. And then also we have the 15th of Sha'ban, which is tomorrow night, which also has great virtue as well, where Allah Ta'ala forgives a large amount of people on this night.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. No, like I was reading one hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which Mufti Sahib, you can correct me inshallah, in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this is the month between Rajab and Ramadan, which many people they neglect. Many people say Ramadan is coming anyway. We'll just do all the ibadah then. We'll give all the charity then. We'll just read all the Quran then. We'll just read all the Salah then. Whereas, like Mufti Sahib mentioned, we need to start building the practice from now, inshallah. Mufti Sahib, we have been seeing for the last few weeks, mashallah, that you have started doing these courses in different places, mashallah. Ramadan 101. If you can enlighten us on Ramadan 101 courses.
Oh, yes,
programs.
The first to reach out for this program was Mufti Asad Qasa from Burnley.
Oh, mashallah.
Damat Barakatuhum. And they're the ones that came out with Ramadan 101.
Oh,
so the main purpose behind this course was mainly the spirit of fasting, to try and combine a 2-hour course in which we discuss the benefits of fasting spiritually, the virtue of Ramadan, but also mainly to focus on the fiqh aspect as well. Because a lot of general bayans before Ramadan, ulama, khutbah will explain the virtue of fasting, but it's sometimes difficult to go through the fiqh of fasting in a Jummah talk. So the purpose was to mention the fiqh of fasting, what breaks a fast, what necessitates kafara, what's makruh, what's jaiz, issues for surrounding fidya, kafara. Because we find a lot of times people get stuck in a situation in Ramadan, and then at that time they're having to find the number of an imam to ring. And depending on the time of day or time of night, sometimes they may not get through to the imam they want. And then lastly, to discuss the important issue of how many rakats of Tarawih are sunnah.
Mashallah. That's an interesting one.
Very interesting.
Mashallah. So, that's a very important point you have mentioned, that, sometimes many important masail about Ramadan, about fasting, etc. are, not, learned properly, or not, people are not very well educated about it. So they overlook these kind of things. And because of that, sometimes, they end up spoiling their fast. And because of that, it has the effects on the whole Ramadan. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like he mentioned, that that blessing of Ramadan you can never get. If one day you've missed that one fast, even if you were to fast for the rest of your whole life, you won't get that blessing. So if you can just enlighten us a little bit of how to spend Ramadan properly, inshallah, and then we'll maybe go into a few masail here and there.
This is a question people often ask, especially now with the vast majority of the fast is when people will be working. And for university students, last week I had a Q&A after Jummah in Leeds Becker University for the students.
Mashallah.
And one question they had was, the whole day we are at uni and some of them do evening jobs. So how do we make the most of Ramadan? So one of them, I asked, what job do you do? And he said, I work as a cashier in a supermarket. So in a very light mood, I said, look, the vast majority of cashiers don't smile anymore anyway. So whilst you're serving customers, hello, hi, how are you? And the rest of the time engage in dhikr.
Subhanallah.
So people have this worry that we're working, how do we worship Allah? The first point is that your talab of halal rizq, you making an effort for halal rizq is also an ibadah.
Subhanallah.
If you make the right intention.
True.
And secondly, whilst working, I think it's possible for people to engage in dhikr. Most jobs, even those who telephone after you put the phone down, in between, typing the numbers in, or whatever Quran you know by heart, any dhikr, engage in dhikr. And also ulama mention the main thing is to abstain from sin. Ibn Qudama, he mentions that there's 3 types of fasting. The fasting of the awam, the normal person, which is just to abstain from food and drink. The level above that is to abstain from food and drink, and also to abstain from sin. And the level above that, the highest level, khasul khawas, is to do the other 2, but also to abstain from any thought other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which is obviously
first class,
which is difficult for us. But at least the middle class we should try.
Inshallah.
Fulfill the farz and abstain from sin.
Subhanallah. No, I remember that reminds me once. I remember many years ago I was in Ramadan. I was in Dubai. I went into a taxi, and the taxi driver, he had a little Quran, which he used to keep in the that little dashboard. There's a lot of traffic here and there, and sometimes I just in the traffic I'm just sitting there reading Quran. This is like this during my taxi. I read so much. He's not Hafiz, he's a normal person. He said, I made this habit even out of Ramadan. He said, it became my habit. Yeah. So in Ramadan, I try to do more, but out of Ramadan, as much as I can. So the Prophet ﷺ, he did not say that, read Quran and do the ibadat in Ramadan. Increase it. Meaning we should have these things in our life anyway. But we just increase the quantity, the amount in Ramadan. But the Prophet of Allah ﷺ mentioned, show Allah your deeds, because the rewards are multiplied. How much are the multiplication? 170 times. If you can just enlighten us a little bit about the rewards in Ramadan.
There's in terms of, for example, the reward for Tarawih, as per the Hadith of Bukhari, Man qama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban, ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. That whoever stands in worship in Ramadan, in Tarawih, in all of his, with the hope of reward and iman, all of his past sins are forgiven. In one narration, in terms of normal amal, one farz equals the reward of 70, and the reward of a nafil equals the reward of one farz.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So it's like a season to build as much as we can. Subhanallah. Ya baghi al-khair, aqbil. Wa ya baghi al-shar, aqsir. With the doer of good, advance, do more, continue doing more good. And with the doer of evil, stop. Many people, when it comes to Ramadan, they have that thing that it's Ramadan, I shouldn't be doing this. Which is a good thing, mashallah, good consciousness. But is that sin which they have stopped should only be for Ramadan, or should that continue? Many people they say, after that I'll sort you out.
After Ramadan we'll make up what we missed.
Eat day or something.
I think Ramadan serves a very good purpose for example, people who smoke, and for example, they may use nicotine patches in Ramadan. For 30 days, mashallah, they've not smoked, or they've been able to abstain from smoking. This is a lesson that if you manage for one whole month, it takes, ulama mentioned, 40 days to form a habit. 10 more days and you'll be close to giving up that habit.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. No, you mentioned something really important. That reminds me of the other hadith of the Prophet of Allah about the takbir ula. Man salla lillahi arba'ina yawman fi jama'atin yudiku takbirat al-ula kutiba lahum bara'atan. So we always tell people that we are going, mashallah, a lot of people, you see the masjid full in Ramadan. People, they try to make like extra effort that in Ramadan I need to make sure I read in the masjid with jama'ah. So in Ramadan we're going to make that extra effort to read salah with jama'ah anyway. If we start 10 days before, or continue for 10 days after, we can get this as well. What do you think, Mufti?
Amazing point, mashallah. That Ramadan as well, but our satis who go in Tablighi Jamaat 40 days, they say, mashallah, 40 days Jamaat, we can do 40 days Takbirullah.
Yeah, like I was listening to one talk by our elder Hazrat Malam Abdullah. I think he was quoting from somebody else. He said, if the chilla, 40 days should be for 40 days of everything. 40 days of first stuff, 40 days of, sunnah, ishraq, 40 days of tahajjud, 40 days, everything. Not just spending the time. Then it's like a complete. So same in Ramadan, subhanAllah, we should try to get as much virtue as we can from this season that Allah has given us. I don't know whose qawl it is, but maybe Mufti Sahib, if he can remind us maybe that if we go to the graveyard and we were to ask the people in the grave that what is your greatest wish, then they say, I wish I can get one day of Ramadan.
Oh.
So, there were many people who were with us last Ramadan. We don't see them. The Prophet of Allah used to make dua 2 months before. Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan. So, the aim of this podcast that we are doing today is that we understand how great of a month Allah is giving us, and we from now make a timetable in our life, diary. So Mufti Sahib, if you can give us like a little timetable, like a daily routine, how, like you mentioned, in a working environment, full working day, how a person can try to maximize his Ramadan.
I think first and foremost, what's important is a person tries to utilize the time that he's awake whilst working to engage in ibadat that he can. But as soon as he comes home, because in this year we have iftar quite early, around 6 o'clock, and then we have an hour break, an hour and a half, Tarawih, and this year 9:30 Tarawih will finish.
MashaAllah.
And I think most people will not fall asleep straight away, and most of our youth will be, mashallah, queuing up for chai.
Inshallah.
So I think it's important that time is a very special time.
True.
A very special time. I think what's also important is not to overburden yourself. Sometimes people start Ramadan and in the first day they do 5 paras and then they wake up after 6 days.
True.
So I think doing something consistent, as per the hadith of Sahih Muslim, أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدومها وإن قل.
Subhanallah.
So Allah loves consistency. So consistency is key. So because everyone's timetable will be different. If everyone fix a time, half an hour a day, in this time I'm going to do my ibadat, my Quran tilawat, my dhikr. Apart from the dhikr you do at work, because this dhikr is that where you focus solely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As per the hadith of Bukhari, where 7 people will be given shade under Allah's arsh on Qiyamah. One of the people is Rajulun dhakarallah khaliyan fafadat aynah. Someone who was alone, he took Allah's name and he started to cry. So that dhikr and tilawat that's done with adab, facing the qibla, instead of wudu, with that khashya and that tawajjuh, it has a bigger impact on the heart.
True.
So everyone should make their own timetable, but fix a time daily where, as a minimum, I'm going to do this. Try your best throughout the day, have small pockets of ibadat, so that a person does not feel overburdened by long periods of worship.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. No, you very, very important. Like I remember many years ago, when we used to be young, that time they never used to have so much mobile and social media, etc. People used to come, even when we used to go for Zuhr in the masjid. There used to be some people reading Quran before Zuhr in the masjid. Many people reading Quran after Zuhr in the masjid for over an hour. Some people used to come early before Asr to read Quran. Some people used to read after Asr. Nowadays, you only see more or less this type of environment only after Asr. Just before Maghrib, just before about 20 minutes before you start to talk Quran Ballah. And you should be, if Allah has given you a bit of time, before Fajr, come a bit early. Or maybe after Fajr, read some Quran. The whole day, whatever time, we can make a little timetable. Inshallah, this is my sleeping time, this is my going to work, this is my doing other things, this is my Quran time, this is my, spending time in the masjid. And if before we move on to some of the fiqh masail, I was going to say that what you mentioned is something really important about consistency. Because sometimes when we don't plan Ramadan, the first few days of Ramadan, we have a lot of passion. The masajid are full, there's no space, everything, mashallah, people going crazy. That's Ramadan vibe. And then 5-6 days later, the whole vibe, fizzles out. And then from the 7th of Ramadan till about 20th, 21st of Ramadan, these days are the most neglected. People are just spending that day like normal days. The only thing they do maybe different is like they're fasting and they're doing Tarawih. The rest of the time is like the masjid crowd starts going down, and you see less and less type of vibe, people. And then the last 10 nights, then people start coming again to the masjid, itikaf, etc. So we need to understand that every day of Ramadan is very, very blessed. We can't just do ibadah the first few days and then miss out a few in the middle and then go for the last few days. In fact, the way I look at it is that as the days of Ramadan start getting less, then our connection should be getting more. What do you think? Like, I've only got 25 days left now. I need to do more. Instead of like, I've only got 20 days left. So, inshallah. So, Mufti Sahib, inshallah, let's move on to some of the fiqh aspects, some of the do's which we should do while fasting, and some of the don'ts, some of the things that is good while fasting, some of the things that will break fast. Just briefly. Specifically, everybody has different situation, but main things, inshallah.
In terms of some of the important fiqh masail, in terms of something that someone or everyone comes across, is the issue of brushing one's teeth with toothpaste while fasting. It's a question often asked. Hanafi ulama have mentioned that as a general rule, to use toothpaste is makruh. It will invalidate your fast if toothpaste was to go down the throat. So one needs to exercise caution, and one should really avoid using toothpaste and instead use the sunnah miswak while fasting. The same goes with mouthwash, but mouthwash is a lot more dangerous because it's solely liquid form, isn't it? So that's one of the issues. There's two main masail in terms of certain things necessitate not only qadha, making up the fast, but also kafara, which in terms of sequence is freeing a slave, right, which is also difficult in today's age, right? The second one is to fast 60 consecutive days. Recently, in December, in the Khanqahi Ijtima we had, there was one Nojawan, he came and he said, look, I can't eat because I'm keeping my 60 fasts, But often what happens is it's difficult to fast 2 months consecutively.
Without missing it.
You fall ill and then you've got to start again. So, but really this penalty only applies if you've intentionally ate something, drank something, or engaged in relations with one wife. Only in these 3 cases will you get in a Ramadan fast kafara. Besides that, if a person was to brush his teeth and toothpaste was to go down his throat, that only necessitates qadha, making up the fast after Ramadan, and not kafara. And also, I think another masla here is when making wudu, often people, when rinsing the mouth, especially the first 2 days when you're not in fasting mode, and I know after Ramadan, 3 days after Ramadan, whilst having a shower, you're still careful about water going down because you're still in the Ramadan mindset. So the first 2-3 days when you're not really inside the Ramadan mindset and you're still getting used to Ramadan, it's quite easy to kind of take down water whilst gargling the mouth. That will obviously invalidate the fast.
Qadha we have to
make it up after Ramadan. In terms of another often question is, if somebody is a Shara'i Musafir, he's a traveler, does he have to fast? So there's a common misunderstanding that someone says, oh, I'm going on holiday, my flight's at 11 a.m, so I'm not fasting. But the actual masla is that the only way that you have a concession in Sharia is if you are traveling at the time of suhoor. So when suhoor ends, sahri ends, the fast becomes necessary upon you. At that time, where are you? If you already start traveling, you've left your city, then yes. If you're at home, your flight's at 11 a.m. and you're going to Manchester Airport at 8 a.m, when sahri ended, you were at home, so you have to fast.
Subhanallah. No, very important, very important. A lot of people they misunderstand these issues. They think, I'm going to travel later on. But at the moment, you're not traveling.
No.
Now, a lot of people, a lot of another issue. A lot of people might be asking about diabetic type of people. They say, oh, we're not going to fast. We can't fast. Like from a medical point of view, I was speaking to 1 or 2 doctors, and they were saying that sometimes it may be good for them to fast. It's more, good for the health, etc. From a medical point of view. But a lot of people, because they say that, oh, we feel dizzy, or sometimes we, have blackouts or something. So we're just going to give Fidya. If you can just enlighten us about that masala as well.
This is a very important masala. In terms of somebody who is excused from fasting because of illness, there's 2 things here. Number 1, they have to have been given advice from a God-fearing Muslim doctor.
God-fearing.
God-fearing, muttaqi. So not just any doctor, and not just any Muslim doctor. God-fearing. Ulama mentioned God-fearing Muslim doctor. So they have the awareness of how important fasting is, and they have the awareness of the body as well. It's a mix between 2. Once the doctor says, for example, you can't fast, then they come to a local alim and present their case. So it's always a case-by-case basis.
True.
Someone should not read a fatwa online where someone said, I've got X problem, and the Mufti has given fatwa, okay, you don't fast. And then they apply those circumstances to themselves. That's very, very important. And that's with all cases.
Everything,
in terms of where we seek concession for not fasting. But on the mas'ala of Fidya, one important mas'ala is in the Asian community, people don't want to fast out of laziness. And they say, I'll give £5 on behalf of my fast.
Fidya.
That doesn't count. You can't give money in exchange of fasting. Allah has ordained an ibadah upon you. That ibadah is necessary.
True.
You can't give money in exchange. Fidya, as ulama mentioned, is only for like a Shaykh Fani, someone who's going to pass away on his deathbed, or somebody who is terminally ill with no hope of recovery. Bedridden. Someone's got stage 4 cancer, and doctors have said, look, he's not going to get better. He can't fast. For him, they can give Fidya. But like the Fatawa mentioned, that you could only give Fidya once Ramadan starts. Once Ramadan starts, you give Fidya. £5 per fast. Now, somebody who is ill on the day, or a woman who is unable to fast because of her circumstances, these people will not give Fidya. These people will just do qada after Ramadan. And ulama mentioned to this extent, let's say for example there's somebody who has given Fidya because they were initially terminally ill, declared by doctors. So they've given £150. 2 months after Ramadan, alhamdulillah, they get shifa. Now they have to make up those fasts.
MashaAllah.
Though that Fidya was now, mashallah, nafil for you, sadaqah for you, but now you have to make up those fasts.
These fasts are getting very easy, especially if you have to make up the fast in November, December time, it's very easy.
Very easy.
Like early breakfast and a late lunch. Just like you don't even feel anything. SubhanAllah. Sometimes before Ramadan you feel, especially when the fast used to be really long. A few years ago, when June, July time, you used to feel like, how am I gonna do it? And then after Ramadan you feel like, mashallah, it was really like we've done it. So Allah yuridullah bikum al-yusra wa la yuridu bikum al-usra. Allah is making it easy for you. So Allah is telling you to fast, but Allah is making it easy for you to fast as well. So we should value these blessings of Allah subhanallah. We shouldn't deprive ourselves due to small reasons, like you mentioned. These sometimes for small little issues, sometimes we want to deprive ourselves from the blessings, really good blessings of fasting, Ramadan, and Tarawih, and there's some people there are these kind of things. Now I think before we move on, I think we should touch a bit on the hot topic, Tarawih, 8 or 20. Briefly, inshallah. That's like a
very briefly, inshallah, I'm going to be addressing this on Sunday in Zakir Masjid, inshallah.
Everybody should inshallah try to participate. Mufti Sahib will be giving a talk, inshallah.
So normally this part of the course is about half an hour long. But inshallah we'll summarize it, inshallah. So there's often a misconception that Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, was the one who started 20 rakats Tarawih. Unfortunately, some people who offer 20, they say themselves, we do not know how many rakats Huzur alayhi salam read. Sometimes our own ulama, our own people, our own friends, they say this. And then this leads to some confusion as well. There are actually three riwayat, three hadith which mention that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam read 20 rakats Tarawih.
Subhanallah.
Now, in terms of the first one of Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba and Tarikh-e-Jurjan, there is kalam in terms of some have said it's weak. The third riwayat of Al-Mashayikh al-Baghdadiyya, Dr. Abul Hassan from London, he has written 156 pages proving that hadith is sahih.
Yeah, he came here.
For Aqidah, didn't he? So, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is at least minimum one sahih authentic hadith which mentions Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam read 20 rakats Tarawih.
He was mentioning, when he showed me the thing, his tahqiq, he was saying that I am yet to find anybody trying to object on this. आज तक किसी ने उसके ऊपर तो बहुत objection उठाए, लेकिन इसके ऊपर आज तक किसी nobody has. Subhanallah. Sorry, you can.
So the other two, even if you accept them to be weak, Sheikh Qatani, the Muhaddith, he says, because of this Sahih Hadith, they gain strength. And as you know, they become Hasan li ghayrihi. They also become Hasan as well. So all three of these narrations which mention Nabi Islam read 20 rakats, this is authentic. And even after that, there's many riwayats, we can go in detail, as Umar, as Uthman, as Ali, Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay bin Ka'b, then Tabi'een may say. And then there's Arab ulama who've written that for the past 1400 years in Makkah Mukarramah, Madinah Munawwara, Tarawih has been 20 rakats. 1400 years. Now, even the hadith people often use in regards to 8 rakats, this is not in regards to Tarawih. It's in regards to Tahajjud. Clearly from the hadith, from the Abwab of Imam Bukhari, Abu Dawud, Imam Nasai, Ibn al-Qayyim, Zad al-Ma'ad, many muhaddithun put that hadith under the chapter of Tahajjud.
I remember
I went on this issue.
No, it's true. I remember once I went to one masjid, Jamaat, not in this area, another city, I think, went in UK. So they actually wrote it in the timetable as well, at the bottom. Please don't confuse yourself with Tahajjud and Tarawih. Tahajjud is 8, Tarawih is full 20. The timetable he can publicly nobody. But subhanallah, I think I was listening to Hazrat Maulana Sughman Sab's clip. MashaAllah, you can enlighten us. He was mentioning Tarawih in every masjid, the whole Ramadan, full Quran, with Jama'ah, and then 20. He said, they don't have issue with all the other points. They only have issue with this one number. Yeah. All of this was, Umar, how they say that, to revive all of this. So he's the one who did the full Quran. So you take that from him. He's the one who did it like with Jama'ah, behind the Imam. You take the azul from him. In every masjid. All this, the full Ramadan, the Prophet only did for a few days. Yeah. So you don't have an issue with all these other points which he started. But just this one issue of the number, people want to make a big deal out of it. So either you take everything, or you don't want to pick and choose it. Likewise, this is all ittiba hawa. Allah forbid. So mashallah, Mufti Sahab has given us some really good insight towards Ramadan. Mufti Sahab, any advice, final advice towards Ramadan, etc., before we finish?
And the last point I would probably mention is ihtimam of tahajjud, and a lot of us have certain du'as that we want answering and certain hopes that we have in life. The best time to kind of have your hopes secured is the last portion before Sahari ends, in tahajjud, in Ramadan, and to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your needs and desires.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Where Allah mentions about Ramadan and the fasting, Shahru Ramadan, the very next ayah is about dua. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. The link between the ayat, بين الآيات, that when a person is fasting, he's carrying out the commands of Allah, etc. And Allah wants to give him something. The hadith of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said that fasting is for me, and I will personally give the reward. Allah says, Hadith al-Qudsi. He said, because sometimes, chalo, in Ramadan, everybody knows more or less everybody's fasting. But out of Ramadan, until you don't tell the person you're fasting, the person, even the guy next to you, will not know you're fasting. And it's like a secret between you and Allah. So Allah says that only I know this person is fasting. Yeah. And only I will give him the reward myself. SubhanAllah, So it's a very, very great ibadah. We shouldn't just look at it as a, just tradition or just like a, season or something. It's a very big ibadah. We need to spend it wisely every day of Ramadan. It's very, very important. Let us cut down on our screen time. Messages of the day, reminders of the day, hadith of the day, these kind of things. Just take the whole day off sometime in Ramadan. Everybody wants to spend. My Ramadan today is just spending, daily reminders every day. And sometimes, it takes too much off. So sometimes, we just tell that, put that phone away, especially, control it. Control that screen time. That from this time to this time, I will check whatever messages I need to check. The rest of the time will be for my Allah, for my ibadah. And especially the last 10 nights of Ramadan, just cut it out totally. Many people, the day before Eid, they think that is now Ramadan is finished. Until the last Maghrib, till the day before Eid, until that, every second is important. You shouldn't waste. Many people, 27 nights Khatam, Quran, Ramadan is finished. Now you have the next 2-3 days just to do Eid shopping, preparation, baking, whatever. We need to understand that Ramadan is still going on. And if we can do, inshallah. Mufti Sahib, something last 2 minutes about i'tikaf, 2-3 minutes.
I'tikaf was Da'imi Sunnah, the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And a hadith mentions a person who does i'tikaf, Allah will place trenches between him and Jahannam. So i'tikaf is a great sunnah, the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And it's a fard kifaya on behalf of the whole community. Unfortunately, they are, alhamdulillah, so blessed in Batley. I know in one town, just 10 miles away, the whole last Ramadan, they did not have a single person sat in the masjid. Allah. So a person in an area where there is no one who sits, then the entire community receives the sin of no one sitting. And imagine a person who, as per the hadith of Sahih Muslim, the person who does intidhar for salah ba'da salah. He gets the reward of being in salah, just for waiting for salah. Then a person who enters the masjid with a niyat of itikaf, his entire 24 hours in the masjid, including his sleeping and eating, becomes ibadah.
Allah. Subhanallah, subhanallah. So that is a very big ibadah which we should do, inshallah. Everybody can sacrifice some time and spend the full 10 days in the masjid, the last 10 days of Ramadan. Or the second option is that we do nafil itikaf, meaning try to spend all nights in the masjid, the weekend, etc. Allah give us the ability to value this Ramadan that is coming and value each and every second of it. And one of the ways we can value each and every second is that we look at each and every second of Ramadan as if it could be my last. Maybe we may not get another Ramadan, many people, they tell us that, I struggle to wake up for Fajr. At the moment it's a bit late, it's okay, but when the Fajr gets a bit 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and people, they struggle. So I tell the youngsters that, think that this could be my last Fajr. Maybe I may not get another Fajr. Just that thought will not let you miss that Fajr, will make you jump out of that bed. What guarantees that I will be able to eat Fajr tomorrow? So that is why the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when we look at this as if Salat Muwadda, the last one, then you'll be on track, inshallah. You'll be on track. You won't be able to waste any time. Allah give all of us the ability, inshallah. May Allah reward you for your beautiful advice, mashallah. And you can always stay in touch with our respected Mufti Sahib, mashallah. Doing many courses this Sunday, inshallah. He's got a course as well in Fiqh Masjid, mashallah. And he's quite accessible on some of the social media as well, mashallah. Jazakumullah khairah. If anybody has any questions, any queries, anything they're not sure of, inshallah, let us know. Until we meet again, Jazakumullah khairah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.